Hey everybody, it's Tina over at the Bourbon Cactus. I thought I would come to you today and just give you an update on what's going on with Doodlebug. A lot has been going on with her and our house the last, I guess, like 6 months or so. We've had a lot of changes go on and some, big things happen with her and her cleft palate and her other diagnosis. So if you don't know, and this is the first time that you've not read my last post about her, Doodlebug is now, she's over 2. She will be, this is June, so she's almost 2.5. But she was born with a cleft palate. And that just means like she's missing part of the roof of her mouth. Particularly her cleft palate was the entire roof of her mouth. So it was a complete, U shape. So she was missing everything. And you could see right up actually to her, into her nasal passage. So she was born with a cleft palate. She was born with Pierre Robin sequence. And that means that's just a sequence of things that happened, and they consider it Pierre Robin, which inevitably is a small recessed jaw, which is micrognathia. And the tongue sets really far back in the throat, and so you can have like trouble breathing and that kind of thing. Not every child with Pierre Robin has breathing issues or whatever, but it's possible. So along with the cleft palate, Pierre Robin or PRS, she has obstructive sleep apnea, the micrognathia. She had laryngomalacia at birth that we had corrected, and she just had other various other like typical feeding issues that is associated with cleft palate, and she's had some speech delays and difficulties. A lot of that stuff has been fixed besides the sleep apnea. That's been our biggest concern lately. They did repair her cleft palate when she was a year old. So it's been over a year since they repaired that, and we were actually due for a sleep study to just kind of keep an eye on her breathing and that kind of thing, just to make sure everything was going okay. We were due for that back in December. Due to weather and some other things, we didn't get to do it. So it kept getting pushed, and we went in April for that. So that sleep study was supposed to be a checkup, right? Like just to make sure that she was doing fine. The closer it got to time for the sleep study, we started noticing a lot of changes in her sleep. Some of them are just like regular, toddler type things. Some of them seemed like a little bit more, she was just tired all the time. So regardless of how much she slept, which typically for her at that time, when we started noticing problems, she would go to bed between 7 and 7:30 at night, and she would sleep until 7 or 7:30 the next morning. And that was typical, but she was still getting up and being very tired within an hour or so of waking up, and she was just really cranky through the day. And I noticed like during nap time, like she just wasn't resting well. She just didn't seem like when she got back up, she was rested, and I could even hear, in her room being really restless during naps and even at night. So we were getting a little concerned, didn't know what was going on with her. So aside from that, we noticed her snoring had become a little bit more. She was, snoring was louder. She was snoring more frequently. And she was a mouth breather, like even if she wasn't asleep. So a lot of times, you don't think of, much about that, but coming from a child that's already had some breathing issues and, you know, other difficulties, it was concerning because, you know, we didn't know what was going on. So, and I don't know if it was a combination of all those things, but she, you know, she would just wake up through the night and just be really like fussy and like cry like hysterically sometimes. And then, you know, she would usually put herself back to sleep. I never really had to go in there with her. But, you know, those things had not shown up like they were right before the sleep study. Like, I guess we started really noticing a big difference towards the end of December of 2017. You know, once, you know, a lot of these changes started to happen. So we had a lot of concerns going into the sleep study as far as health concerns. The other concern is, you know, she was older now. So the last sleep study we had, she was still my baby. She was still a little baby. She was, I think, she would have just been over a year old. So she was still really small. She wasn't potty trained yet or anything. Wasn't really talking. So, you know, it was a lot different going for that sleep study. So this time we were going into it potty trained. So I wasn't sure how that was going to work. Because if you know anything about a sleep study, you know they put a lot of wires on you, or on the child. So, I mean, it's kind of wild what they look like. I'll try to pop up a picture and show you guys. But they have all these, you know, leads that go into the hair and on the chest and arms and tummy and legs. And then they're hooked up to these machines. Well, before that's never been a problem if she's, you know, needed to go to the bathroom because she was not potty trained and didn't know really to go to the potty. At this point, going into the sleep study that we had in April, she was potty trained and knew very well that she needed to go potty. So I was concerned on how that was going to work because the way their rooms are set up where we go to our sleep study, which is Cincinnati Children's, love them by the way. You know, the beds are not very close to the bathrooms. And even if they were, you know, the leads and the wires only stretch so far. So I was concerned on how that was going to work. More so for my stress because I was afraid that one, she wasn't going to be allowed to get up and go to the bathroom. Or two, I wasn't going to get her there in enough time to go to the potty like she needed to. And then she would have an accident and then she would be upset. So I was concerned about that. And, you know, she had nighttime routines going into the sleep study. You know, like I said, she was older, so she had kind of gotten to the point where she was ready to she was putting herself to bed almost. She didn't want Mama to hold her, you know, till she fell asleep. She was really, you know, Mama lay with me, you know, Dada give me kisses, sister give me kisses. And then I would go lay with her in her room for, you know, maybe 5-10 minutes at the most. And she'd be, okay, Mama, go to your own bed. And then that was her, you know, that was her going to bed. So I wasn't sure how that was going to work. You know, knowing that we were going to have to be in the same room together, you know, for the sleep study. And knowing that she was going to be in a crib, which she's not been in a crib now for a while. And actually, she doesn't even sleep in a bed. She sleeps on the floor. That's what she prefers. So I wasn't sure how all that was going to work. So I was super nervous, I guess you could say, or anxious going into the sleep study that we had because I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know how, you know, her new routine was going to go with the sleep study, and I did not know how it was going to turn out, you know, knowing that we were concerned about her breathing issues already. You know, it was getting a little worrisome for me and Mr. O. So went to the sleep study. It went really well. Doodlebug was a champ, honestly. We turned on a movie on the TV and she got to watch the ballerinas and she did really, really good, you know, when putting the leads and everything onto her head and, you know, on her chest. And then they were almost done when she started getting really fussy. And it really wasn't until they put the nose piece, the cannula on, because they got a little elephant nose that just kind of hangs down. And especially the one that they use is kind of for mouth breathers just in case. You know, that way they don't have to come in when she's sleeping and change anything because they're not getting the readings that they need. So she didn't like that part. So that was the only part that she really fought on. But other than that, the sleep study went really well as far as going smoothly, executing the sleep study. So then 2 days after that, we went back to the hospital for a follow-up. So our follow-up, it was for the upper airways clinic, and they just wanted to go over our sleep study results and a general follow-up to, you know, her surgery, because we hadn't had one of those yet because we, you know, weren't able to go in December like we needed to. So we were doing all of those follow-ups together. So we saw human genetics, ENT, pulmonary, and plastics, because plastics was and genetics were our follow-ups that we should have had, you know, us outside of the upper airways. So they just see us all together, so we don't have to worry about, you know, multiple appointments and changing rooms and 15 different days. They're really good at accommodating, you know, when you travel like that. So they all came to us in one room during the clinic and talked with the different things. We'll start with plastics. So plastics is who does her palate repair, and they said her repair looked really good. They said it was healed beautifully and they didn't have any concerns about it. I did bring up one concern with her teeth, and I thought that maybe they were hyperplastic. Just meanings like the enamel and stuff didn't develop right on her back teeth, and that's something that's kind of common with cleft palate babies. But they said that she's so young and the teeth weren't, you know, developed enough yet that they could tell, but it was a possibility. So they're going to keep an eye on that. But other than that, plastics said that she was great, doing good. And then we did, you know, talk about the sleeping concerns and the breathing and stuff with him. But then they, you know, they kind of go back and talk with, you know, our upper airways people to make a decision about treatments and that kind of thing. I have my notes, by the way, because we have a lot of information that we're given, so I always write everything down so I don't forget. So human genetics, we're just kind of a follow-up. With them, we kind of make sure that nothing is changing with the health and the history of not just Doodlebug, but with me, Mr. O, sister, you know, anybody in the family, because Cora's pretty rare, and the fact that the chances of her being born with a cleft palate in Pierre Robin was like less than 1%, since Little Bear was born with cleft palate. So having 2 children born with that is not very common. It was super, super rare since we didn't have any family history of it. So they just kind of, you know, keep up with us to make sure there's nothing changing that would suggest something else as being the cause of the Pierre Robin and the cleft palate. They have been testing her Doodlebug for something called Stickler syndrome. I'm not super familiar with it yet. I've done a little bit of reading, but it's not very common. It's a very rare disease, but it could explain, you know, a lot of the issues that she's having with, you know, the sleep apnea, the cleft palate, the PRS, and, you know, all those other things. It could, you know, be why all that's happening again with the second child. So they kind of have been doing some testing with that, and at this point, our first test was like, I think over a year ago. They're in research stages still, so we don't know anything about that. Still, just waiting to hear, you know, they think that she doesn't, they think that she does. It's one of those things that changes. Like, you know, you're in research, and it could be that, you know, you only have so many people with this gene mutation, and then they're saying, oh no, that's not, that's not linked to, this disease at all. And then all of a sudden the next day, something new could come up and they say, yes, definitely that is, that gene mutation is absolutely, linked to this disease. That's what this is. So, it's a changing thing, and we just are waiting, for a definite answer one way or the other on that. So as far as the upper airways practitioners, like I said, we saw pulmonary and ENT. Our pulmonary doctor came in and saw us first and explained to us that Doodlebug, during her sleep study, was having 4 to 5 episodes or occurrences an hour where she her oxygen level dropped. So that doesn't necessarily mean she absolutely stops breathing. It just means that she's losing a significant amount of oxygen that many times an hour while she's sleeping. They said we're still on the mild side, but had she had one more occurrence an hour, which is not very much if you think about it, she would have been considered moderate sleep apnea, which that's kind of where we were, before she had any of her, jaw distraction or anything like that. When she was a baby, we were in that bracket, before then. So for them to say that this time, it was a little concerning. I wasn't, terribly concerned with it. But they did say that, after they did the jaw distraction, they did another sleep study when she was a baby. And they said that compared to that sleep study, when she was, she was less than a year old. So that sleep study compared to this one that we had in April, they said it was worse. So, that part kind of made me concerned, and the point where, what's going on, what's changing with my baby, that she is getting worse and not getting better with certain things. So that was a concern. I wasn't worried, I was just concerned, more of, like, why is this happening? Why are we not just in the clear? We've had surgeries, we've had enough surgeries, why are we not, why are we just not getting better? But, it is what it is. But, so then the ENT came in and talked to us about, the sleep study results as far as ENT is concerned, and, some other habits and things that Doodlebug was having. And the doctor decided to do a scope in office. And for this scope, they don't have to put you to sleep or anything. They just take a little bitty microscope that's like the size of a spaghetti, and they just stick it up the nose and down the throat so they can see what's going on in there. Is there anything that's in the way, or enlarged or missing, or whatever, to see kind of what's going on. So when they did that, they saw that her adenoids were very enlarged. And it was explained to me that as you grow, I think up to the age of 9, I think they said in girls that the adenoids continue to grow. But they could not let hers, they said that hers were really big. So they said the tonsils were enlarged, the bottom part of the tonsils. But they didn't want to touch those because, I guess, as far as tonsil surgery goes, they say it's a high bleed risk, and we live a significant distance away from our hospital. We go to Cincinnati Children's. We live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So they're super concerned about the bleed risk because they say it's super high for tonsil removal. So they said if they did tonsils, they'd have to keep us for like 2 weeks just to monitor, to make sure that, there were no complications after the fact. but that's kind of a big surgery compared to an adenoid removal. So what they opted to do was take out just the superior portion of her adenoids, which means just the top portion. And that is because she is a cleft palate baby, and when you are born with a cleft palate, your body and your tongue and everything kind of learns to close off in different ways because you don't have the palate for your tongue to butt up against to make certain sounds, or for swallowing or whatever. So you don't learn to use the tongue that way because it can't reach the roof of the mouth. So they said they just wanted to take the superior portion and then leave the bottom, so she had that for whatever function that she needed. I was okay with that. I was relieved that they said that they did not want to do both surgeries, because their feeling is, the doctors that we had, was they don't want to do it just to do it. Since they're in there, they want to make sure it's necessary. At this point, they only feel that the adenoid surgery is necessary, and that is what could be the cause of the breathing issues while she's sleeping, and even when she's awake. So it's a relatively minor surgery, I guess, but nonetheless, it is surgery, and it's concerning when you have a child, going in for surgery, because you never know. But I'm completely confident in my doctors, and I appreciate them, and I trust what they have to say. So I'm hoping this helps. We actually go, this is June, so we go later this week and have that done. So I will give you all an update when we finish that, and maybe some updates throughout the week if I can manage. I have my hands full because I'll be going by myself with Doodlebug to do that. But yeah, that's kind of a long video, I know. I'm sorry guys, but it was going to be easier for me to do a video than try to explain this in just a regular blog post. So if you could send lots of good vibes, prayers, positive thoughts, whatever you all believe in, if you can send them our way this week as we go through the travel and surgery with Doodlebug. I'm anxious and interested to see what happens. So again, I'll give you all an update later when we get this taken care of. And thanks for stopping by and listening, guys. Appreciate y'all. Bye.